Welcome. I'm Bo. I am from DPA Microphones. I had a seminar about speech intelligibility yesterday on the main stage. Today we're trying it here. I don't know how many people will join, but if there's an audience, I can talk pretty much. I'm on a crate here, and I will talk about speech intelligibility. I have prepared a little PowerPoint presentation. I have a little setup here where I can shift between the different inputs, so you can see my PowerPoint and you can see me and hear me at the same time. Anyway, this session is about speech, where I would reveal for you what speech is. I'm sure you already know, but there is a difference between the consonants and the vowels, their importance in the speech spectrum, and the hearing spectrum. What is the hearing spectrum? What's the threshold of hearing when we're young and when we are older? And then, of course, the sound source, the directivity of the voice in the horizontal plane and in the vertical plane. And lastly, I will talk about microphone placement, tips and tricks, good placement and bad placements. And of course, we have the chat window open here. So if you have any questions on the way, don't hesitate to throw the questions at me. But this is basically what I will talk about during the next half an hour or so. So let's get on with it. Speech consists of both vowels and consonants, and speech lies in the area between 100 and 10K pretty much. Most important between 100, 125, 150 and 8K. But to be on the safe side, we're working around 1 to 10. The vowels, the R, E, U, are in the lower frequencies of the speech spectrum. The R, E, U are those soft sounds, and the consonants K, P, S, T are the hard sounds. The paradox here is that these consonants that we work with the most are in the area between 2 to 4K, with a peak at 3K. Those consonants, they have very little energy compared to the vowels at the lower frequencies. The vowels R, E, U, O are easy to add energy to. You can yell a vowel, you can add energy to a vowel, but you cannot add energy to a consonant. The consonants, the hard sounds, the transients are formed by our mouth, the lips, and not so much the vocal cords. So if you add energy to the vowel, to the R, E, U, or you can sing a vowel, you can really make that loud, but the K, P, S, T, those spitting sounds, you cannot add energy to it, especially not these days. You don't want to spit anyone in the neck or in the face. So the paradox is that if we yell, if we raise our voices, we will raise the level of the vowels of the lower frequency. I should go like this for you perspective, the lower frequencies, but the consonants, they will remain the same level. So you would you will shift the natural balance between the vowels and the consonants when you raise your voice. So speech intelligibility is not increased by just raising your voice. Of course, if you're talking to someone that has hearing disabilities, raising your voice will give them the ability to hear something, but it will not make it easier to understand in the general terms. So we have vowels with a lot of energy and consonants with a little energy. An example is this recording here. It's the recording of the word act. And you see the A has a lot of energy, and the C and the T doesn't have so much energy. I know that this is different from language to language and from tradition to tradition. Some languages, without mentioning any names, are yelling very loud. I have a comment in the box here mentioning something like that. Some languages or some dialects, they are very lazy. They don't want to pronounce all these consonants. So their language is more or less without consonants. And there are languages in the world, like the tonal languages, like Cantonese, where they don't use much consonants. But dialects can sometimes be really hard to understand for non-natives because of the lack of consonants. It's really difficult to say, to know what they're saying. If you then add the hearing disabilities on top of that, if you see the normal hearing of, or the hearing of a normal person on the left, you see the threshold of hearing is right here, around 3 to 4K, it's much higher, meaning that we have a very much higher sensitivity of our hearing in this particular area. And that is because we need to distinguish, we need to be able to hear and understand these consonants. So if you don't have anything else to work with, preserve the consonants because they have very high importance. That's not the same as it sounds good. The natural sound of a voice is a natural sound of voice, meaning it should sound like you're standing in front of the person. It should sound like the microphone or the speaker system, the headphones, whatever you have in between you and the person talking should be taken out of the equation. Every time we add an obstacle, add some sort of distortion, reverb, something in between, then our brain has to use power to filter, to remove all that unnecessary information. If you are sitting in a restaurant and you have really bad acoustics in the restaurant, you can still hear and understand the person talking in front of you, but it's because you have line of sight. It's because you can concentrate. Your brain can block out all the stuff going on around you guys. But the second that you cannot see the person, the second that you are looking the other way, or he is looking the other way, or there's something in between, then the ability to understand is reduced a lot. The point here is that the cleaner the sound, the more transparent, the more natural the sound we can have, the easier it is for the listener to understand what's being said. So it's our job as microphone amplifiers, mixing consoles, and manufacturers, speaker manufacturers, to give you the cleanest sound possible. When you're working with acoustics also, it's the object is to make it as acoustically linear, as acoustically natural as possible. When we get older and we lose our hair and get gray hair or whatever we do, we lose the ability to hear. But the scary thing is that we lose the ability to hear the consonants before we lose the ability to hear the vowels. So speech intelligibility is becoming more and more important the older the people are, the older the listeners are. So if you're working with elderly people in, let's say, a church, you need to be able to distinguish all the consonants even more than you would in a daily conversation, or at least as much. If you're a young guy and you have perfect hearing, you have no problems understanding what's being said or sung, you have to consider this. You have to consider that you might be in a perfect position in the room. You might have your mixing console in a perfect position in a room. You hear perfect stereo. You have nothing reflective right behind you or whatever. You could be wearing headphones. You have the perfect conditions to understand everything, but not everyone has that. Some have reflections. Some have even only the off-axis sound of the speaker system or whatever obstacles could be in the room. But bear that in mind, that you are very privileged. Sometimes we are not privileged. Sometimes we are put in the back and we have to mix something that we can't hear, and that's a different story. When we are talking microphone placements, it's important to know what is the sound source, always. It doesn't matter if it's an instrument or it's the voice. When we look at the voice, the directivity of the human voice, we see on the left here, we see the level of the voice from 1 meter's distance. And when we're talking 1 meter, it's because 1 meter is considered normal conversation these days. Normal conversation distance these days. Could be a little further, but for this experiment, we were working with 1 meter as a reference all the time. So if you look at the picture on the left, you would see that 1 meter away from this person, we have less level as we go around the person. That's not a surprise for most people. But on the right-hand side, you see a polar pattern showing the level of the different frequencies around the person. The blue line is the higher frequency, the green are the mids, and the red ones, the orange and the reds, are the lower frequencies. Referring to the vowels and the consonants, you could say that the green and the blue are the consonants, and the red ones are the vowels. If we then look at the radiation pattern or the directivity of the human voice in the vertical plane, you would see that we have a lot of level below the person. We have actually more level of the voice in a 45-degree angle below the person that we have in a 45-degree above the person. That's not the same as saying that if you put a microphone down here, you have better speech intelligibility than if you put it up here. That's actually the contrary, because level is not the same as speech intelligibility. If you look at the graph or the polar pattern on the right here, you would see that the green and the blue, they are louder than the orange, than the red on above the person, meaning that we have more consonants above the person than we have below the person. So you're losing the consonants when you go below the person. When you put a lecture mic or you have a handheld mic, you are below the person. You are placing the microphone in a not optimal position for the speech intelligibility. So an experiment we did was that we put a microphone 1 meter away and we listened to this microphone. That was our reference, so that you can consider that as the 0. Everything we hear is in reference to this microphone 1 meter away. We then place a microphone on the forehead and we measure the difference between the 1 meter away and the forehead position. And that's the graph that we see here. That's the difference. That's not the absolute frequency response of a person speaking, but that's the difference between 1 meter away and the forehead. We have taken all the level differences, we have taken that out of the equation, so we are only talking about the frequency differences. We have placed a microphone over the ear because that's in some cases in theater and in film, feature film and so on, it's a very easy position to hide the microphone and the cable. And if you're working with people with less hair, it's easier to hide the microphone over the ear, so that is relevant. That's why we have taken that into the the experiment here as well. The cheek, we call it. It is actually what I'm wearing here. That's the headset. That's the position, just a little behind the mouth. And this is the frequency response of that. And then, of course, the lavalier position on the chest, 10, I should say 15, 20, 25 centimeters below the chin. I would like to play the differences for you, the different positions, but I'm not sure you can hear it, but I'm willing to give it a go here.
I used to feel so uninspired.
Did I just talk over that? I think I did. Let me do it again.
I used to feel so uninspired. I used to feel so uninspired. I used to feel so uninspired. I used to feel so uninspired.
Okay, now you heard all four of them. I'll mute here so you don't hear the echo. I'm not sure you can hear the differences between the placements, but I encourage you to do this little experiment yourself because it's an eye-opener. What I do when I make it normally, I will take 4 identical DPA mics and I will place one on the forehead, one over the ear, one as a headset, and one on the chest. And I will record all 4 of them at the same time. Make sure that the levels are the same. And the way that you do that, you take the 4 microphones, you place them in a little bouquet, a little very expensive bouquet, and then you speak into all 4 microphones like so. And then you set the gains equally on the 4 mics. Then you know you have the same sound and the same level on the 4 mics. Then you place them on yourself or on a test person, and you record the 4 microphones at the same time. And then you toggle between the different tracks, and you hear the differences very, very clearly. What you will hear, and I guarantee you this, is okay, you couldn't see me doing a little bouquet. I'm sorry about that. I'm all by myself here producing and mixing and presenting. Here, what I did, I take 4 microphones like this, hold them like this in front of you so we have like a natural sound and speech. And you set the level of the 4 microphones out here. And then you put them in here. Anyway, this is the conclusion of 10 experiments that we did. 7 guys and 3 girls. And we found that the forehead position is almost flat, meaning that it is almost the same as the 1 meter away. There's a little peak at around 800 hertz. I will come back to that. The ear position, same thing with a peak at 800, but now we are losing all the high frequencies. And that's actually not a surprise because with the ear position, we are behind the sound source. We are now not in front of it anymore. Now we are here. We are behind it. So we should, according to the other polar pattern, we should lose some of the higher frequencies. The cheek headset position, we have a little more of that mid-range, the 1K. That is also very good in terms of the speech intelligibility, but we are still behind the sound source, so we are still losing the high frequencies. And then the really bad position, the chest position, the lavalier position, we are losing everything around 3K. So that is, you could say, the worst position of all to place the microphone in. That is what we have to work with. Back to this. All the 800 hertz peaks that you see here, they are created because we are now placing a microphone on a surface. We are creating a boundary layer effect or a PZM effect, pressure zone effect. We are placing the microphone on the forehead. It's the forehead is becoming your pressure zone. The ear is becoming your pressure zone, the cheek, and so on. Because of that, we have that high or that peak at around 800 hertz. The reason why I bring this up is because we hear many, especially in film, saying that the sound that you hear when you put the microphone here is a chest sound. It is the sound of the chest or the sound of the throat. The sound of the throat is very, very weak, and the sound of the chest is almost non-existing. So that is not true. The sound that you hear when you place the microphone here is a product of the microphone now being placed behind the sound source because of the anatomy of us, and below, and that's reducing the higher frequencies according to the other experiment. So that's the chest sound. It's not sound coming from here. That's a myth that we have to kill. So if that was sound coming from the chest, why is the sound also here? That just proves the point. Anyway, you see it here, all the peaks at around 800 hertz. So the conclusion is that if you place the microphone on the cheek, it provides a 10 dB stronger signal. And if you place the microphones on the chest, you must compensate for the loss of speech intelligibility. And the way to compensate for that, this is the graph. This is the result of the placement due to the physics and to the directions. This is the resulting EQ. So if you do on your console, if you make the opposite, the mirror of that EQ, if you make a peak at around 3K and you make a valley around 800 hertz, then you are back to the flat. You are doing the opposite of what the microphone placement is doing against you. All this works if you have microphones that are flat, that if the microphones are, let's say measuring microphones, like this is our measuring microphone. This is the microphone going to Mars. But the miniature microphones that we provide as headsets or as lav mics or as ear mics, whatever you want to call them, they have the same flat frequency response. So your starting point is 0. You're starting with it on a clean slate, kind of, on a white canvas. And then you are starting to EQ. You are EQing by placing the microphone in various positions. You heard that before. These files are, by the way, they are available on our website. So you can find them and you can download them from SoundCloud and hear them afterwards. But you're EQing when you're placing the microphone, and then you have to EQ on the console to compensate for whatever placement that you ended up using. You don't have to EQ just because you feel like EQing. You are EQing because you have to. If you start out with a flat frequency response, like the graph I show here on our 4060 and 4061s, we have a flat frequency response. But if you add one of these grills, you would get a little high boost around 12K and around 15, 16K on the other one. Look more into that on our website, what the different boost, soft boost and high boost, what they do. But basically what they are doing, they are adding a tube in front of the microphone, and that is changing the sound dramatically. In the higher frequencies, because of the wavelength, because of the size of the tubes, you get a little gift there. You get a little extra 10K or 12K, which you need if you place the microphone behind the sound source. If it's out here, you would like to have it flat. The article that we have written about this subject is available is available here. It's available on, if you scan this QR code, I will show you here, sorry. It's available here. Scan this QR code and that will take you straight to the article about speech intelligibility. We also made a really cool poster showing these graphs. If you use this QR code, it will take you to the poster. You can download it there, and you can print it yourself and put it somewhere handy, so you know how to EQ as a starting point when you are working with different microphone placements. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to throw them in the chat box. I will be happy to answer them. One of the questions that we sometimes get is about handling noise of different types of microphones. All these microphones that I've used in this experiment and what you heard on the sound files, they are all Omni microphones. And that's important to emphasize, because we are not working with proximity effect here. It's not that we have more low end when we go closer and less low end when we go further away, because we're working with Omni microphones, pressure microphones, and they do not suffer from proximity effect. So Omni mics, yes. If we're working with directional microphones, there are some pros and cons with the directional versus the Omni microphones. The pros are, of course, that they are rejecting more of the background noise. So if we have a band, or we have reverb in the church, or we have bad acoustics or whatever, then a directional microphone would be a preferred choice. The con on that, the flip side of that coin is that directional microphones are more sensitive to handling noise, handling and wind noise. That is why a directional microphone, like our podium microphones or our new micro shotgun microphones, they are mounted in a rubber mount here, because the handling noise will be if you move the microphone, you would have handling noise on the capsule. So that's why it's mounted inside of foam, because it's sensitive to wind as well, because basically because the diaphragm is looser. That's the short version of that. So the diaphragm is reacting on movement, where on a Omni microphone, the diaphragm is much tighter and doesn't react on the movement coming from wind and from handling noise. So that is one of the biggest differences. We have more questions. How would you recommend attaching a forehead mic to a speaker? Well, what we do in film and in theater, we use toupee tape, because it doesn't. Most people do not react to that. Or Band-Aid. If you want to have something that is the color of your skin, and you can paint on it, and you can use makeup on it, sometimes Band-Aid is a preferred choice, because you can have Band-Aid in various colors, and that will fit any skin color. That will hide the microphone on the forehead. The sweet thing with the forehead, if you can convince your presenter, your pastor, or whoever you're working with to wear the microphone here, you can also look on YouTube how to hide the microphone in the hairline. It's actually not that difficult. It doesn't take that much time. And once you've convinced him, if he's on the stage for 3 hours or so, 2 hours, whatever, and he spends like 10 minutes on hiding the microphone there, he doesn't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about wind and popping and so on. You have a perfect position microphone right here that will follow all the way around, just like a headset, all the way around. The downside of the lav, besides the loss of speech intelligibility, is also that if you turn your head around, you would have more or less level on the microphone depending on the distance. So the forehead position is by far the best. The headset is the second best, and it's really cool, especially with the new 6000 headsets, the headbands. They are very easy to mold. They're very easy to tailor to individual persons. And Andy is saying, what mic and placement are you using in this webinar? Well, you can't see it because it's in the beard. It's right here. I could go close up. It's here. It's a 66. It's the new headset. I have it in beige here. I'm stepping out of the camera angle and cutting to my table. Sorry for the mess. I'm doing a lot of different webinars about how to clean the mics, how to handle the mics. But this is the headset. I hope you can see it. Can you see it? There we go. There it is. This is the headset. It's the new 6066. Super cool. That's another webinar, but that's what I'm using. Mine is beige. Not beige. Mine is brown, I should say. That one there is the beige one. It also comes in black, of course. Any other questions to this webinar? I had one question yesterday, by the way. Someone asked, what's the audible difference between an Omni headset and a directional headset? So I pulled out a directional headset from the shelf, and I was actually going to test it, put this directional. So now I have an Omni on one side. That's what you're hearing all the time. And now I have a directional on the other side. So this is the experiment. I'm not sure. Do we have audio on this one here? Can you hear someone give me some feedback? Do you hear my voice now? Yep. Thank you, Steve. You rock. I'm trying to get my ears on here. So you can hear me. Get away. There we go. Now you can hear me on the directional headset. You can hear, if I touch the headset like this, you can hear some handling noise, and it sounds muffled. Yes, thank you. Now we are on the Omni headset, and I will touch that as well, and you hear much less handling noise on that. The Omni headsets are very easy to place because, yeah, you heard it before. It sounds fantastic up here. It sounds okay here. It sounds even better here. But it's not night and day. It's not like you can hear it and now you can't hear it. Where on the directional headset, I will shift to that again, and you can witness what's going on here. If I put it up here accidentally, let's say the headset is moving up here while the presenter is talking, you hear a dramatic difference in the sound. If the headset goes underneath the chin, besides all the noise coming from my beard, you would hear a dramatic change in the sound. So the headset needs to be placed right there, right at the corner of your smile. Make him smile, and then place the headset right there at the corner of your smile. That's the optimal position. It shouldn't sound as muffled as before, but still, the Omni headsets is the pure sound. It just sounds so much more natural. But I also have here on my little setup, I have a speaker right here in front of me. I have a loudspeaker that is playing some pink noise. And if I go like this, you can hear, you probably still can hear my voice, but you can hear a lot of noise, pink noise behind me. If I then shift to the now to the directional headset, it's a bit too high up. I have to put it down here. So you can hear me right now, corner of my smile. And I talk into the headset. Still with the pink noise speaker playing. You would hear much higher rejection of the pink noise when I am speaking into the directional headset compared to the pink noise being picked up by the Omni headset. I'll do it again, and I'll shift from this one here. This is the Omni headset. I'll do it on the fly so you can hear the difference. So starting with the Omni headset and then shifting to the directional headset. Omni headset, checking 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Directional headset, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hope that gave you an idea of the sonic differences between the Omni headset and the directional headset. Just making sure that I have the Omni headset back on. Yeah, I'm just using pink noise because we have all frequencies, and it's not very musical, but it should give a good feeling of the rejection. So we have on one side more handling noise, more sensitive to placement, but on the good side, that's the directional, more handling noise, more sensitive to placement. But on the good side of the directional, better rejection of the off-axis sound. Another thing I'd like to mention on the directional headset is that on some headsets or some directional microphone, the microphone is directional in that angle here. I mean, in front of the microphone, which is not good. If you're working with something like a pink noise generator, I don't know why you would do that, but if you are working with noise coming from the front of the person speaking, let's say that you have wedges and they're playing against the microphone, then they would basically pick up the same noise. But these microphones here, the DPA mics, they have a directivity towards the mouth, like angled, 90-degree angled to the boom. So they are pointing this way and not that way. So important to notice, if you want to work with directional microphone, make sure that you know in which direction they are directional. Yeah, lots to talk about, lots to discuss. Have you ever found wedges being an issue with Omni headsets? Thank you, Alex. Yes, of course. If they are too loud, if they are picking up, if the Omni headsets are picking up more of the sound coming from the wedges than the sound coming from the mouth, then you have a problem. I hate to bring this up, but sometimes some of the wedges that we are using are simply not linear enough. If you're working with a speaker, it could be speaker system or it could be wedges, doesn't really matter. If they don't have a linear frequency response, if they have some peaks or they have some valleys in some frequencies, they will pick up or they will replay the sound unevenly. Imagine this experiment. You have a bad microphone that has let's say a peak at around 1K, just to give an example. So you have a peak at 1K on the frequency response of the microphone. We're not talking about placement here because it doesn't matter where you place this microphone, it has a peak around 1K. If you then have wedges or PA or whatever you have that also has a peak around 1K, then these two, 1K, they will meet and they will create a feedback. If you remove 1K from the speaker entirely, then you are losing a lot of information from either the PA or the wedges, doesn't matter. So you have to only remove as much as you need in order to make the speaker linear again. If you remove the 1K from the microphone, you might lose some speech intelligibility if that's the frequency that you are losing because of the placement of the microphone. Let's say that you're placing it here. You need everything you can get from, let's say 2 to 4K. And if you're removing one of these frequencies because of feedback, because the monitor is feeding on that frequency, then you are losing speech intelligibility on the PA. Unless you can have two different EQs, you're losing the speech intelligibility on the fullback. So important to say that flat speakers, flat wedges, monitors, a well-tuned PA, well-tuned flat equal frequency microphones, that will give you the highest gain before feedback in all situations. If the room and the console and the converters, the belt packs, if everything else is optimized. And that's not the real world. I know that not all system can be 100% optimized in every chain, every links in the chain. But if we do our best to optimize every little link in the chain, then we can raise the level of the speech intelligibility. We can raise the level of the experience of the listeners. Because at the end of the day, as I said in the beginning, at the end of the day, the most important thing for us as sound engineers, as microphone manufacturers, speaker manufacturers, is to be as invisible as possible. If something goes wrong, you've been there. If something doesn't sound good, if we have feedback, they will find you, they will hunt you down. But if everything sounds fantastic, everything is transparent, they don't notice that there's a microphone, it just sounds great, they won't notice you at all. And that's a good day. That if they don't notice you, meaning that if you have done a good job, if nobody comments on the sound. Unfortunately, it's very rare that they come and say, well, we didn't even notice you were there. So that kind of concludes my 30 minutes. If you have any questions afterwards, feel free to write me. Here is, I was supposed to have my email here. I don't. On the website where the article is, there's also an email, a chat box. You can write to us if you have any questions. I don't have a slide with my email here. And here's the download for the poster. Again, it's really handy to have that poster nearby. Okay, thank you very much for joining. I don't see any questions here, so I think we covered pretty much everything around speech intelligibility. Hope you agree. Okay, thank you very much. I will see you somewhere out there, hopefully in person. Hopefully you had a good session here with me, and hopefully you have a good day.